A stormy night, a $1 billion secret, and a mechanic who walked right into it. He thought he was just helping a stranger stranded in the rain, but he had no idea he was stepping into the eye of a storm far more dangerous than the one outside. A luxury car breaks down in the middle of a storm, a mysterious woman standing helplessly by the roadside, and a small-town mechanic who stops to help. Lucas Miller never expected that a simple act of kindness would drag him into a $1 billion scandal, a conspiracy larger than he could ever imagine, and a fight that might cost him everything. Because this woman, she's not just anyone. She's Serena Caldwell, the CEO of Caldwell Financial, accused of fraud, betrayal, and the biggest corporate crime of the decade. And now the people hunting her are hunting him too. What happens when two worlds collide? The billionaire on the run and the man who never wanted to be a hero? One thing's for sure, the storm was just beginning. If you love gripping romance, heart-pounding suspense, and characters who fight for what truly matters, then this is a story you don't want to miss. Subscribe now and follow this incredible journey, because trust me, you won't want to miss what happens next. A mechanic helped a woman in the rain and found himself tangled in a $1 billion scandal. The rain came down in heavy sheets, drenching the quiet roads of Millfield, a town where life rarely changed. The street lights flickered against the relentless downpour, their glow distorted by rivulets of water racing down the asphalt. Most of the town had already gone to bed, the storm a perfect excuse to stay indoors. Lucas Miller, however, was still at his garage. The clock on the wall read 10:47 p.m., and he was just about ready to call it a night. Wiping the grease off his hands with a worn-out rag, he stepped outside and took a deep breath of the cool, rain-scented air. The garage was his sanctuary, a place where things made sense, where engines could be fixed and where problems had solutions. Unlike life. He reached up to pull down the metal shutter when something caught his eye. A flash of headlights in the distance, barely visible through the curtain of rain. The vehicle had pulled to a stop on the roadside just before the town's only gas station. The way the lights flickered unevenly suggested engine trouble. Lucas sighed. He could pretend he hadn't seen it, go inside and lock up for the night. But that wasn't who he was. Grabbing his rain jacket from the hook by the door, he jogged toward the stranded car. As he neared, the silhouette of a woman came into view. She stood just outside the driver's side, arms wrapped tightly around herself, shivering under the rain. Even through the dim light, Lucas recognized quality when he saw it. The car was a black Aston Martin, sleek and expensive, its polished surface now gleaming under the relentless downpour. Whoever she was, she didn't belong in a place like this. "Trouble?" he called over the rain, stopping a few feet away so as not to startle her. The woman turned sharply, her golden brown hair damp and plastered against her face. Her striking blue eyes locked onto his, cautious and calculating. For a second, she said nothing, only studying him as if assessing whether he was a threat. Then with a sigh, she nodded. The car just died, right in the middle of the road. Lucas took another step closer, rainwater seeping into his boots. Battery? I don't know, she admitted, sounding almost frustrated. I called for roadside assistance, but... She gestured vaguely at the empty road behind her. No one's coming. Lucas let out a breath through his nose. Not surprising. Tow trucks don't come out this late, especially not in a storm like this. He ran a hand over the hood of the Aston Martin, already suspecting the problem. The woman shifted on her feet, hugging herself. The coat she wore, probably something designer, was soaked through, offering little protection against the cold. Look, he said, his voice steady but firm. Let me take a look under the hood. If it's something simple, I can fix it. If not, I've got a garage just a couple of blocks down. You can wait there until the rain lets up. She hesitated. I don't even know you. Lucas shrugged. And I don't know you either. But I figure standing in the rain isn't doing you any favors. Her gaze flickered toward the darkened road, then back to him. She was clearly debating her options, but eventually she nodded. Fine. But if you try anything, he smirked. You'll what? Hit me with your stiletto? For the first time, a flicker of amusement passed over her face. Don't tempt me. Lucas chuckled and popped open the hood, grabbing the flashlight from his pocket. As he suspected, the alternator was shot. This car was nothing but high-end parts and delicate engineering, and without a functioning alternator, it wasn't going anywhere tonight. "You're out of luck," he said, shutting the hood. "It's not a quick fix. You'll need a replacement part, and I don't keep Aston Martin alternators lying around." The woman let out a sigh, rubbing her temples. "Fantastic. Just my luck." Lucas tilted his head. "You could wait in the car until morning, but if you want my advice, you'll be warmer at my shop." Another pause. Another moment where she weighed her options. Then finally she nodded. "All right, but just until the rain stops." Lucas held back a grin. "Sure, just until the rain stops." Back at the garage, Lucas handed her a dry towel and a warm cup of coffee. She had taken off her coat, revealing a form-fitting black dress beneath, the kind of thing that screamed high society. Everything about her, from her diamond earrings to the way she carried herself, spoke of privilege and power. "So," he leaned against the counter, watching her sip the coffee. "You got a name?" She hesitated. "Serena." "Serena," he prompted. Another pause, then, "Caldwell." Lucas stiffened. He knew that name. Everyone did. Serena Caldwell, CEO of Caldwell Financial. One of the most powerful women in the business world. And if the news headlines were to be believed, a woman currently under investigation for a multi-billion-dollar financial scandal. Lucas kept his expression neutral. He hadn't expected that. Not here. Not now. She must have noticed his change in posture because her grip on the coffee mug tightened. "You've heard of me." He nodded slowly. "Hard not to." Serena sighed, setting the mug down with a soft clink. "Then I suppose you already have an opinion." Lucas met her gaze. "I don't trust the news. They get too much wrong." Something in her eyes flickered. Relief, maybe, or just exhaustion. "That makes one of us." Silence stretched between them. The rain outside continued to pour, drumming against the metal roof like a relentless heartbeat. Lucas should have sent her on her way. He should have walked away from whatever mess she was tangled in. But he didn't. Because something about this woman, this powerful, guarded, and possibly dangerous woman, told him that the storm outside was nothing compared to the storm she was bringing into his life. And somehow he already knew he wasn't going to walk away. The storm had finally begun to settle, but inside Lucas's garage, tension brewed stronger than the rain ever had. Serena Caldwell. He had heard the name countless times, on the news and business reports, in the kind of headlines that most regular folks barely paid attention to, but that changed the course of industries overnight. But to have her sitting at his counter, wearing his spare hoodie over her designer dress, nursing a cup of coffee like she was just another stranded traveler, was something he hadn't quite wrapped his head around yet. Lucas watched her carefully. She had that kind of composed stillness that only came with years of being under public scrutiny. Every movement was controlled, deliberate, as if even here, in the middle of nowhere, she knew that the wrong word, the wrong reaction, could cost her everything. She wasn't wrong. Lucas took a slow sip of his own coffee before breaking the silence. "So, what's a billionaire CEO doing stranded in my town at nearly midnight?" Serena looked up, her expression unreadable. "Bad luck." Lucas raised an eyebrow. "That all?" A flicker of something, hesitation maybe, crossed her features, but she recovered quickly. "You said you don't trust the news," she said, tapping a finger lightly against the ceramic mug. "Why's that?" Lucas shrugged. "They pick the story that sells. Facts are optional." Serena let out a small breath, something that was almost a laugh, but not quite. "Then maybe you'll believe me when I tell you I didn't do what they're saying I did." Lucas didn't respond right away. He wasn't a cop, wasn't a journalist. He was a mechanic, one who had just gotten tangled up in something far bigger than a broken-down Aston Martin. "I take it the whole multi-billion-dollar fraud thing isn't exactly true," he finally said. Serena's jaw tightened. "No." Lucas nodded slowly. "And yet, you're running." She exhaled, staring at the counter. "Wouldn't you?" That was a fair point. Lucas didn't pretend to understand the world of high finance, but he did understand what it meant to be cornered. And by the looks of it, Serena Caldwell wasn't just cornered. She was being hunted. Something about that realization didn't sit right with him. "Who's after you?" he asked. Serena hesitated. Then, as if making a choice, she met his gaze. "I don't know for sure, but someone inside my company, someone powerful, is framing me. The SEC, the feds, my own board members, they all think I'm guilty. They want me out, or worse." Lucas set his mug down. "And by worse, you mean?" Serena held his gaze for a long moment before answering, her voice quieter than before. "I mean worse." Lucas let out a slow breath. Damn. This wasn't just some corporate dispute or a rich person's legal headache. If Serena was telling the truth, and he had a feeling she was, then she wasn't just running from a scandal. She was running for her life, and somehow she had ended up here. Before he could respond, a sudden buzz filled the air. Serena's phone. She checked the screen, and in an instant, her entire demeanor changed. Her shoulders tensed, her fingers gripping the phone just a little too tightly. She swiped to decline the call, but not before Lucas caught a glimpse of the caller ID. Unknown number. Lucas set his coffee aside. "Serena." The phone buzzed again. This time she silenced it without looking. Lucas didn't like this. He wasn't the kind of guy who got involved in things that weren't his business. But something about the way her hands trembled just slightly, about the way she tried to hide it, made him uneasy. "They know where you are, don't they?" he asked. Serena swallowed, then gave a small, almost imperceptible nod. Lucas's gut tightened. A part of him knew what he should do. Stay out of it. This wasn't his problem. It wasn't his fight. And yet, without a word, he stood, crossed the garage, and flipped the lock on the door. Serena watched him, eyes wary. "What are you doing?" Lucas grabbed a wrench from his workbench. Nothing fancy, just enough to make someone think twice before trying anything stupid, and turned back to her. "Making sure you don't get snatched out of here before you get the chance to clear your name?" A flicker of something, surprise, maybe even gratitude, passed through her gaze, but it was gone as quickly as it had appeared. The rain outside had slowed to a gentle drizzle, but the night felt heavier now, more dangerous. And as Lucas stood there, gripping the wrench a little tighter, he realized something. The storm hadn't passed, it was just getting started. The night had grown still, but Lucas could feel the shift in the air. It wasn't the calm after the storm. It was the kind of silence that came before something worse. He leaned against the counter, arms crossed, watching Serena across the room. She was still in his hoodie, the fabric too big for her, sleeves hanging past her wrists. She had pulled her damp hair into a loose ponytail, but exhaustion had settled deep into her features. She wasn't just tired, she was on edge. Lucas had seen this kind of tension before, the kind of alertness that only came when someone knew they were being hunted. "Get some sleep," he said, breaking the silence. "You're safe here." Serena let out a breath that was almost a laugh, but not quite. "Safe isn't a word I'd use right now." Lucas didn't argue. She was right. Instead, he moved toward the garage door, peering out through the narrow gap in the blinds. His instincts had been screaming at him ever since that phone call, and now he finally saw why. Across the street, parked just beyond the reach of the streetlights, was a black SUV. Lucas's jaw tightened. It wasn't from around here. This town was small, too small for anonymous vehicles to blend in unnoticed. The SUV had tinted windows, the kind that didn't belong in a place like Millfield. Someone was watching, waiting. Lucas stepped away from the window, his mind already running through the possibilities. If these people were after Serena, they weren't the type to just sit and wait forever. He turned back to her. "We've got company." Serena straightened. "How many?" "One car, for now." She swallowed hard. She had expected this. Lucas ran a hand through his hair, thinking, if these guys were professionals, and something told him they were, then they wouldn't make their move unless they were certain. Right now, they were testing the waters, seeing if Serena was alone, vulnerable, or if she had someone protecting her. Lucas wasn't sure why, but something in his gut told him he had just become part of the equation. "They won't act right away," he said, keeping his voice steady. "They don't know if you're alone, and they don't know who I am." Serena nodded. "That gives us a little time." Lucas exhaled, his grip tightening around the wrench he still held. Not much. The SUV hadn't moved. Lucas had checked 3 times now, always careful not to make it obvious. Whoever was inside was patient. That was worse than if they had charged in guns blazing. Patience meant experience. Serena sat on the worn-out couch in the corner of the garage, flipping through a stack of papers she had pulled from her bag. Lucas finally asked, "What are you looking for?" She hesitated before answering. "A lead. Proof that I didn't steal from my own company." Lucas folded his arms. "You're a billionaire. You don't need to steal." Serena gave him a wry, tired look. "You'd be surprised how many billionaires do exactly that." Lucas didn't argue. Corporate greed wasn't his world, but he wasn't naive. Still, there was something about Serena that didn't fit the image of a corrupt CEO. If she had wanted to run, she could have. She had resources, money, connections. And yet, here she was, hiding in a small-town garage, sorting through documents like she was still fighting. That told Lucas one thing. She wasn't guilty. And that meant someone wanted her to take the fall. "You're looking for a trail," Lucas said, stepping closer. Serena glanced up. "What?" "You said you're being framed. Someone made the money disappear, and they made sure it pointed to you. But money always leaves a trail. Doesn't matter how careful they were." Serena studied him for a moment, her blue eyes narrowing slightly. "You know a lot about this for a mechanic." Lucas shrugged. "I know a lot about fixing things." She didn't push, but he could tell she wanted to. Instead, she exhaled and ran a hand through her hair. "The numbers don't add up. The official reports say billions went missing, but I never signed off on anything. That kind of money doesn't just vanish. It has to be sitting somewhere." Lucas nodded. "And whoever set you up made sure you wouldn't find it." Serena's jaw clenched. "Exactly." A heavy silence settled between them. She was in deep. Lucas rubbed the back of his neck, then turned toward the workbench. He reached into the drawer and pulled out something small but sharp. A box cutter. Serena's brows furrowed. "What are you—" Lucas walked toward the back door, and with one quick motion, sliced through the thread of the curtain. He stepped back, revealing what had been hidden behind the fabric. A second black SUV parked in the alley. Serena's breath hitched. "There's 2 of them." Lucas nodded. His voice was calm, but inside, his instincts were screaming. "Yeah, and now we know for sure. They aren't just watching, they're surrounding us." A soft thud came from the garage door. Lucas and Serena froze. Another thud, louder. Lucas motioned for Serena to stay quiet, moving toward the door with careful steps. His heart pounded in his chest, but his grip on the wrench remained steady. A shadow passed under the door. Lucas's jaw clenched. They were testing him. Whoever was out there wanted to see if he'd open up, if he was alone, if he was stupid. Lucas wasn't any of those things. He glanced at Serena, who had gone pale but stayed quiet. He gave her a small nod, one that meant stay put. Then without warning, he kicked the metal garage door. A sharp bang echoed through the shop. The sound of rushed footsteps followed. The shadow disappeared. Lucas waited, muscles tense, until everything went silent again. They weren't expecting that. After a long beat, Serena whispered, "What now?" Lucas exhaled slowly. "Now? We wait." Serena frowned. "For what?" Lucas turned toward the window, eyes locked on the black SUVs. His expression hardened. "For them to make their next move." Because they would. And when they did, he'd be ready. The night refused to end. Lucas barely slept. He had pulled a chair near the garage entrance, his wrench still in hand, eyes flickering between the SUVs outside and the door he had locked. Twice. Serena had fallen into an uneasy sleep on the worn-out couch, curled beneath the oversized hoodie he had given her. Every so often she stirred. Even in sleep, she wasn't at peace. Lucas wasn't either. Whoever was after her was patient. That was what bothered him the most. If these were just hired thugs, they would have kicked down the door already. Instead, they were waiting, testing his defenses. They weren't trying to take her yet. They were trying to wear her down. By dawn, the black SUVs had disappeared, but Lucas knew better than to think the danger had passed. The rain had left the roads damp, and the early morning mist curled over the empty streets. Lucas stepped outside, stretching his sore muscles. The garage sat at the edge of town, a place that rarely saw much action this early in the day. Except today. A few hundred feet down the road, a man stood watching. Not moving, not talking, just watching. Lucas felt the familiar prickle of unease crawl up his spine. Whoever he wasn't from around here. Lucas turned back into the garage, locking the door behind him. Serena was awake now, sitting up with her fingers curled around a lukewarm coffee. She didn't look at him when she spoke. "They'll keep coming, won't they?" Lucas exhaled. "Yeah." She nodded as if she had already known the answer. Lucas hesitated before asking, "Who are they?" Serena ran a hand through her hair, sighing. "Could be anyone. The SEC wants me in custody. My board wants me out of the way. And if the people framing me think I'm getting too close to the truth..." She didn't finish. She didn't have to. Lucas leaned against the counter, crossing his arms. "What's your plan?" Serena let out a dry laugh. "You think I have one?" Lucas watched her for a moment before speaking. "You do. You wouldn't be here if you didn't." Serena looked up at him then. Her eyes held something tired but sharp, like a woman who had spent her entire life fighting battles no one ever saw. She finally admitted, "I need time. I need somewhere to lay low while I figure out who's pulling the strings." Lucas ran a hand over his face. He should have told her this wasn't his problem. He should have told her to pack up and go. But he didn't. Instead, he said, "There's a house behind the garage. It's not much, but it's quiet. No one knows about it except me." Serena blinked. "You're offering me a place to stay?" Lucas shrugged. "You need a roof. I've got an extra one. Seems simple enough." She studied him, wary. "And what do you get out of this?" Lucas's jaw tightened. He didn't have an answer for that. All he knew was that something about this situation, about her, felt too wrong to ignore. Instead, he just said, "A mechanic's life is pretty dull. Maybe I could use a little excitement." Serena gave him a small, almost smile. "You're going to regret saying that." Lucas had a feeling she was right. Lucas's house sat just behind the garage. A simple single-story structure, nothing fancy, but solid. Serena followed him inside, her arms wrapped around herself. She was used to penthouses and five-star hotels, and he could tell she was mentally adjusting to the change. "It's small," he said, watching her reaction. She glanced around at the worn leather couch, the kitchen with exactly 2 coffee mugs, and the single hallway leading to the bedroom. Then she said, "It's peaceful." Lucas hadn't expected that. She set her bag down and turned to him. "How long have you lived here?" Lucas hesitated. "A while." It wasn't a lie. It also wasn't the full truth. Serena caught it. She didn't push, but she filed that information away. He could see it in her eyes. Lucas cleared his throat. "I've got an extra room. It's nothing special, but it's got a lock on the door." Serena arched a brow. "Are you expecting me to lock myself in?" Lucas shrugged. "Let's just say it's better to have options." For once, she didn't argue. For the first time in what was probably years, Serena found herself in a life without constant pressure. No board meetings, no stock values flashing across screens, no photographers waiting to catch a misstep. Instead, there was just quiet. Lucas worked on cars during the day, the sound of engines and metal filling the air. Serena found herself watching him sometimes, surprised at the ease with which he worked. There was something solid about him, a man who didn't need power or money to know who he was. She envied that. One evening she stood in the kitchen, watching as he poured 2 cups of coffee. He handed one to her without a word, leaning against the counter. "You really like fixing things, don't you?" she asked. Lucas shrugged. "Always have. Some things just need the right tools." Serena traced the rim of her cup. "And some things can't be fixed." Lucas didn't look at her when he said, "Doesn't mean you stop trying." Something about that hit deeper than she expected. For the first time, she felt like someone wasn't looking at her as a billionaire or a scandal, but as a person. It was unsettling. It was also dangerously comforting. The uneasy peace lasted exactly 3 days. Lucas had started to believe, stupidly, that maybe, just maybe, the people hunting Serena had backed off. Then on the fourth night, everything changed. Lucas was locking up the garage when he heard something. A creak, not from inside, from the back door. His grip tightened on the wrench as he turned the corner. The night was too quiet, the air heavy, and then he saw it. His kitchen window was open. Lucas's blood ran cold. Someone had been inside. Heart pounding, he stepped inside, scanning the room. Nothing looked disturbed. No broken glass, no signs of a struggle. Then he saw it, a single piece of paper left neatly on the counter. He picked it up, his breath catching as he read the words. "Stay away from her." Lucas's jaw clenched. They had been in his house, and that meant one thing. They weren't just after Serena anymore. They were after him, too. Lucas stood in his kitchen, gripping the note in his hand. The paper felt too light for the weight it carried. "Stay away from her." It wasn't a threat. It was a warning. And it meant whoever had been here didn't just want Serena. They were paying attention to him now, too. Lucas exhaled slowly, his grip tightening. That was a mistake. If these people thought he was just some small-town mechanic who would be scared off by a note, they were dead wrong. Behind him, a floorboard creaked. Serena had stepped into the kitchen, already dressed for the day in jeans and one of his flannel shirts. Her high society wardrobe no longer fitting this new reality. She caught sight of the paper in his hand and immediately went tense. "What is that?" Lucas didn't hand it to her. Instead, he set it on the counter and stepped aside so she could see for herself. The moment her eyes scanned the words, her expression darkened. "Damn it." Lucas leaned against the counter, arms crossed. "That was here when I locked up last night." She exhaled sharply, rubbing her forehead. "They're getting closer." Lucas's voice was steady. They were inside. Serena went still. When she looked up, her blue eyes weren't just worried, they were calculating. A woman who had spent her life navigating sharks had just realized she had underestimated the depth of the water she was swimming in. Lucas saw the moment she reached the obvious conclusion. "You should walk away," she said, her voice quieter now. Lucas let out a dry chuckle. "Yeah? And then what? They just stop coming?" Serena didn't answer, because they both knew the truth. Lucas rubbed the back of his neck. "So what's next?" Serena hesitated. "I need to get to my lawyers. If I can prove what's happening—" Lucas cut her off with a shake of his head. "Bad idea. Your lawyers work for your company, right?" Serena frowned. "Some of them." "Then they're compromised." She exhaled. "Not all of them." Lucas raised a brow. "You willing to bet your life on that?" The silence that followed wasn't reassuring. Lucas sighed. "Then that means we need a new plan." Serena narrowed her eyes. "We?" Lucas met her gaze evenly. "You think I'm backing out now?" Serena shook her head, half amused, half frustrated. "You really don't know what you're getting yourself into." Lucas smirked. "Then I guess we're even." For the first time in what felt like years, Serena wasn't surrounded by assistants, investors, or security personnel. There were no ringing phones, no endless meetings, no stock market numbers flashing across a screen. Instead, she was walking through a small-town farmer's market, the air crisp with the scent of fresh produce and coffee. Lucas had insisted on going, partially because they needed groceries, but mostly because he wanted to see if anyone was watching. So far, no SUVs, no unfamiliar faces. Serena, however, was struggling with something else entirely. "This is strange," she admitted, adjusting the sleeves of the flannel she had borrowed from Lucas. Lucas grabbed an apple from a vendor's stall, tossing it in his hand before biting into it. "What? Buying fruit?" She shot him a flat look. "Number not having people watch me like I'm some kind of investment opportunity." Lucas chewed thoughtfully. "I don't know. That guy over there looks pretty interested." Serena stiffened before following his gaze. Lucas grinned. The guy was an old farmer, staring at her with open curiosity. Serena sighed. "Funny." Lucas chuckled, tossing another apple into his basket. "Maybe you should try just, enjoying it." Serena frowned. "Enjoying what?" "This," Lucas said, gesturing around them. "No board meetings, no suits, no stress, just people, just life." Serena hesitated. Lucas watched her closely. He had seen powerful people before, had watched how they carried themselves, how they calculated every move. Serena was different. She wasn't just a CEO on the run. She was a woman who had forgotten what life felt like outside of battle. For a moment, she let herself relax. Just a little. Then the moment shattered. Lucas was about to pay for their groceries when he noticed it. Across the street, a man in a gray suit, not moving, just watching. Lucas kept his expression neutral, but his body went on high alert. He turned to Serena. "Time to go." Serena tensed. "What?" Lucas didn't answer. He handed the cash to the vendor, grabbed the bag, and casually but firmly placed a hand on Serena's back, steering her toward the truck. "Lucas, just keep walking." She did. She trusted him. That realization hit him harder than it should have. They reached the truck. Lucas opened the door for her, but before he could get in, a second man appeared. This one wasn't across the street. He was right behind them. Lucas reacted on instinct. He stepped between Serena and the man, his expression unreadable. "Something I can help you with." The man didn't smile. "You should mind your business." Lucas let out a slow breath. "Yeah, see, problem is, you just made it my business." The man didn't move. Lucas didn't either. Serena, standing behind him, exhaled softly. "Lucas?" That was enough to snap the tension. The man smirked, but it wasn't friendly. "You don't know who you're protecting, do you?" Lucas's jaw tightened. "I know enough." The man tilted his head. "Then you should know this. If you don't let her go, you won't be able to fix what happens next." Lucas's voice was calm, controlled, but there was steel underneath. "I fix a lot of things," he said. "Breaking people isn't one of them. But I'll make an exception if you don't walk away right now." For a moment, no one moved. Then the man stepped back. Not because he was afraid, but because he had made his point. He turned and disappeared into the crowd. Lucas let out a slow breath before glancing at Serena. She hadn't blinked. "They're testing us," she said quietly. Lucas nodded. "Yeah, and next time, they won't just send a warning." Serena swallowed, then softly, "Why are you still helping me?" Lucas met her gaze. "Because I don't like bullies." That was true, but it wasn't the whole truth. The whole truth was that for the first time in a long time, he cared about something again. And that was dangerous. The encounter at the farmer's market had been a warning. Lucas knew it. Serena knew it. Their pursuers weren't just watching anymore. They were closing in, testing boundaries, pushing to see how much resistance they'd face. And Lucas had made his position clear. Now the only question was how long they'd wait before striking again. By the time they returned to Lucas's house behind the garage, the sun had begun to dip behind the trees, casting the world in hues of deep gold. Serena was quiet, lost in thought as she stepped inside. Lucas set the grocery bags on the counter and turned to her. "Talk to me." She hesitated before speaking. That man today, he wasn't just muscle. Lucas frowned. "You know him?" She exhaled sharply. "Not personally, but I know the type. He wasn't sent to take me yet. He was sent to see if I had any help." Lucas rubbed his jaw. So now they knew. Serena wasn't alone, and that meant Lucas was now officially part of this mess. As if to drive that fact home, something caught his eye. A single white envelope sitting neatly on the doorstep. His stomach tightened. They had been here. Without a word, he picked it up and ripped it open. Inside was a single piece of paper, typed in cold, impersonal font. "Leave now, and you walk away clean. Stay, and you burn with her." Serena's breath caught as she read over his shoulder. Lucas's jaw clenched. They weren't bluffing. Serena turned away, arms crossed, her voice low. "You should go." Lucas scoffed. "Yeah? And let them win?" "This isn't your fight, Lucas." Lucas stepped in front of her, forcing her to meet his gaze. "It is now." Her lips parted slightly as if she wanted to argue, but she didn't, because she knew he wasn't going anywhere. Later that night, Serena sat at the kitchen table, going through the remaining financial reports she had salvaged. Lucas was standing by the window, arms crossed, watching the street outside. He hadn't seen any signs of the black SUVs since earlier, but that didn't mean they weren't still out there. Then, Serena's phone rang. She stiffened. Lucas turned. The screen flashed an unknown number. Her fingers hovered over the button. Then, with a steady breath, she answered. Hello? For a moment, silence, then, hello, Serena. Lucas watched as every muscle in her body locked up. The voice on the other end was male, calm, amused. I see you've made a friend, the voice continued. That's sweet. It's been a while since you let anyone close enough to stab you in the back. Serena's grip on the phone tightened. What do you want? A soft chuckle. Come on, Serena. We both know how this ends. You hand over the files and maybe, just maybe, I let you disappear quietly. Lucas moved closer, his protective instincts flaring. He could hear the venom in this man's voice. Whoever he wasn't just an enemy. He was personal. Serena's voice was like steel. I don't have the files. A pause, then, you always were a terrible liar. Lucas saw her hand tremble, just barely, but she masked it well. Time's running out, sweetheart, the voice continued. You can either make this easy on yourself, or you can watch as everything around you crumbles. Serena ended the call. Lucas took the phone from her hands and set it down gently on the table. Who was that? Serena's throat worked as she swallowed. Someone I used to trust. Serena didn't speak for a long moment. Then finally she exhaled. His name is Daniel Grant. Lucas's brows pulled together. That name sounded familiar. Serena sat back, staring at the ceiling. He was my right-hand man, the CFO of Caldwell Financial. Lucas's stomach dropped. Let me guess, he said. He's the one framing you. Serena let out a bitter laugh. Oh, it's more than that. He was the one I trusted with everything. The company, the accounts, my decisions, and now. She shook her head. Lucas didn't need to hear the rest. Daniel Grant wasn't just setting her up. He had been planning this for a long time, and now he wanted her out of the way permanently. Lucas ran a hand down his face. Damn it. If Serena had told him this sooner, he could have. Lucas stopped himself. She hadn't told him sooner because she had no reason to trust him. Until now. Lucas exhaled. Okay, what's our next move? Serena blinked. Our next move? Lucas raised a brow. You think I'm walking away now? Something flickered in her gaze. She didn't say it, but he could see the gratitude in her eyes. Finally, she nodded. We find proof. We expose him before he buries me completely. Lucas gave a slow nod. Then we start with the files you have. Serena hesitated, then reached into her bag and pulled out a single flash drive. This is all I managed to recover before they locked me out of the system, she admitted. I don't even know what's on it. Lucas took it from her, rolling it between his fingers. Guess we're about to find out. Lucas had just plugged the flash drive into his laptop when the power cut out. The room plunged into darkness. Serena inhaled sharply. Lucas! I know. Lucas moved fast, grabbing a flashlight. He made his way to the window and froze. Outside, parked along the road, were 3 black SUVs. And this time, the men inside weren't just watching. They were getting out. Lucas turned back to Serena, voice calm but urgent. We need to go. Now. She didn't argue, because this wasn't just a warning anymore. This was an attack. And Lucas wasn't about to let them win. The moment the power went out, Lucas knew they were out of time. The 3 black SUVs parked outside weren't just a threat anymore. They were here to take action. He moved fast, grabbing the flashlight from the kitchen drawer and pressing it into Serena's hands. Stay close to me. She nodded, her expression unreadable, but Lucas saw the fear in her eyes. Not fear for herself, fear for him. Lucas ignored it. He had a job to do. The house was now completely pitch black, the only light coming from the faint glow of the moon outside. Lucas's instincts kicked in. He reached into the bottom drawer of his workbench and pulled out a crowbar. Not the best weapon, but enough to make someone think twice. Serena's voice was a whisper. How do we get out of here? Lucas glanced toward the back door. They're expecting us to run. That's their mistake. Serena frowned. What do you mean? Lucas kept his eyes on the shadows moving outside. They think we're scared. Serena gave him a look. Lucas, I am scared. Lucas finally turned to her, his voice calm. Then let's make them more scared. Lucas didn't run. Instead, he did something the men outside weren't expecting. He unlocked the front door. Serena inhaled sharply. Lucas, what the hell are you doing? Lucas stepped to the side, keeping his shadow out of sight. Then he whispered, We wait. Serena stared at him like he was insane. But then, the front door creaked open. A dark figure stepped inside. Lucas moved fast. Before the intruder could react, Lucas grabbed the man's jacket collar and yanked him forward, slamming him into the wall. The impact sent a dull thud through the house. The man grunted in pain, his gun slipping from his hand. Lucas kicked it across the floor. Serena backed away, pressing her body against the wall. Lucas pinned the man in place, his voice a low growl. Who sent you? The man choked out a laugh. You already know, he rasped. Lucas's jaw clenched. Daniel Grant. The man smiled, blood trickling from the corner of his mouth. You're not going to win this. Lucas didn't flinch. I don't like losing. The man's smile didn't fade. Neither does Daniel. A car door slammed outside. Lucas turned to Serena. Time to go. She nodded, moving fast. No more questions. No more hesitation. Lucas grabbed the fallen gun, shoving it into the waistband of his jeans. Then, without looking back, they ran. They took Lucas's old pickup truck, peeling out of the driveway just as the rest of the men stormed into the house. The roar of engines followed. Serena gripped the dashboard. Lucas, they're catching up. Lucas clenched his jaw, pushing the gas pedal harder. His truck wasn't made for speed, but the back roads of Millfield, that was his territory. They've got horsepower, he said, eyes locked on the road. But I've got something better. Serena braced herself. Which is? Lucas smirked. Experience. He made a sharp turn onto a dirt path, tires kicking up gravel. The SUVs followed, but they weren't built for terrain like this. Lucas knew every back road, every ditch, every abandoned construction site in this town. He used it all to his advantage, zigzagging through alleyways, cutting through old farms, taking shortcuts only a local would know. Serena stole a glance at him. You've done this before? Lucas didn't answer, because she was right. After another sharp turn, the headlights behind them grew smaller. Then, gone. Lucas finally exhaled, slowing the truck. His hands were still tight on the wheel. Serena let out a shaky breath. That was... Lucas glanced at her. Fun? She shot him a look. I was going to say insane. Lucas smirked. Same thing. But as the adrenaline settled, Serena grew serious again. This won't stop, she murmured. Lucas knew that, and that meant they needed to strike first. They pulled off the road near an abandoned cabin Lucas used to visit as a kid. It was secluded, safe. Serena leaned against the truck, arms crossed. That flash drive, we need to see what's on it. Lucas nodded. We'll do it now. Inside the cabin, Lucas set up his laptop on the old wooden table. The place was dusty, but it would do. Serena handed him the flash drive. If there's anything useful on here, we need to act fast. Lucas plugged it in, fingers moving over the keyboard. It took seconds for the files to load. What they found changed everything. Serena inhaled sharply. Oh my God. Lucas stared at the screen. It wasn't just fraud. The numbers, the transactions. It was embezzlement, laundered money, shell companies, offshore accounts. And worse, Daniel Grant wasn't working alone. Serena's voice was barely a whisper. The names on these accounts... Lucas's eyes narrowed. High-ranking officials, billionaires, people who had no business being involved in this. Serena pressed a hand to her forehead. This isn't just about me. Daniel didn't just frame me. He's covering up something bigger. Lucas leaned back, his mind racing. This wasn't just a financial scandal. This was a conspiracy. Serena's voice was shaking. If we expose this, people won't just come after me. They'll come after you, too. Lucas held her gaze. Then, without hesitation, he said, Good. Serena blinked. Good? Lucas cracked his knuckles. Means I get to hit back. Serena let out a breath that was half a laugh, half disbelief. You're insane, she murmured. Lucas grinned. Starting to think you like that about me? Serena didn't answer, but she didn't deny it. Lucas shut the laptop. Serena crossed her arms. So what now? Lucas's voice was firm. Now? We stop running. Serena narrowed her eyes. And do what? Lucas's smirk was dangerous. We go hunting. Because Daniel Grant thought he had them cornered. He was wrong. The old cabin was silent, except for the occasional rustling of wind through the trees. Lucas sat at the wooden table, eyes fixed on the laptop screen, scrolling through the damning evidence they had uncovered. Serena stood behind him, arms crossed, tension radiating from her in waves. Her face was illuminated by the glow of the screen, and Lucas could see the storm brewing in her eyes. She wasn't scared anymore. She was angry. These accounts, she murmured barely above a whisper. They go deeper than I thought. Lucas leaned back, rubbing his jaw. Your CFO isn't just covering up a financial scandal. He's laundering money for people who don't want their names showing up in any records. Serena's breath came out in a slow exhale. Billionaires, politicians, foreign investors. If this comes out, Lucas glanced up at her, then people start going to prison. Maybe worse. Serena ran a hand through her hair. No wonder they want me gone. Lucas shut the laptop. His mind was already running through their next move. They couldn't run forever, and after tonight, he wouldn't let her. Serena turned away, pacing the length of the small cabin. Lucas watched her carefully. Then she stopped. I need to go back, she said suddenly. Lucas's brow furrowed. Back where? She turned to face him, determination hardening her features. New York, my company, my board. I need to take control before Daniel does. Lucas sighed, shaking his head. Serena, if you show up in the city, you're as good as handing yourself over to them. I don't have a choice, she shot back. If I don't go now, they'll make sure I never get the chance. Lucas studied her. She wasn't wrong. But walking into enemy territory without a plan, that was suicide. You don't just need to go back, he said finally. You need to go back with an advantage. Serena crossed her arms. And what would that be? Lucas's expression darkened. Daniel thinks you're on the run. He doesn't know you have the evidence. Serena nodded slowly. So we use that to trap him? Lucas smirked. Exactly. By morning, Lucas had already put things in motion. He placed a call to an old contact, someone who knew how to move information without drawing attention. The kind of person you didn't list in your phone under a real name. Serena stood by the window, watching the tree line. Are you sure about this? Lucas glanced up from his laptop. You got a better idea? She didn't answer. Lucas went back to typing. He was planting bait, sending carefully crafted messages, making it look like Serena had gotten desperate and was looking for a deal. Daniel will hear about this, he said, and he'll take the bait. Serena narrowed her eyes. And then what? Lucas met her gaze. Then we finish this. It was late. The cabin was dark except for a single lantern on the table. Lucas leaned against the counter, watching as Serena flipped through a folder of documents. She looked tired but focused. You should sleep, he said. Serena glanced up at him, smirking. Funny. I was going to say the same to you. Lucas shook his head. I don't sleep much. She studied him, her expression softer now. You didn't have to help me, you know. Lucas exhaled. Yeah, well, I'm starting to think you'd do the same for me. A small silence stretched between them. Then Serena took a step closer. Lucas didn't move. I don't know what happens after this, she admitted, voice quieter now. Lucas tilted his head. What do you want to happen? Serena hesitated. Then before she could second-guess herself, she closed the distance. Lucas reacted on instinct. One hand wrapped around her waist, pulling her flush against him, the other tangling in her hair as he kissed her, like he had been waiting for this moment all his life. Serena melted into him, fingers curling against his shirt, pulling him closer. This wasn't a mistake. This wasn't just adrenaline. This was real. By the time they broke apart, Lucas could hear his heartbeat pounding in his ears. Serena's forehead rested against his, breath uneven. That was unexpected. Lucas smirked. Was it? She let out a small laugh. No. Lucas's voice was low. I'm not letting anything happen to you. Serena met his gaze, and this time, there was no hesitation. I know. The plan was set. By tomorrow, they would be heading back to New York. Serena was ready. This was her fight. But Lucas, he wasn't just fighting for justice. He was fighting for her. And if Daniel Grant thought this was over, he was about to learn just how wrong he was. The morning air was crisp, carrying with it the weight of what was to come. Today, they were going back to New York. Lucas loaded the last of their supplies into the truck, checking over every detail. He wasn't leaving anything to chance. Serena stood by the passenger door, her arms crossed. She had barely spoken since waking up, her face unreadable. Lucas watched her for a moment before speaking. You good? Serena exhaled slowly. Just trying to remember what it feels like to walk into a battlefield. Lucas smirked. I thought that was your natural habitat. Serena huffed a dry laugh. It used to be, but now, everything feels different. Lucas studied her. Because now you're not fighting alone. She met his gaze, her blue eyes flickering with something unspoken. Then finally she nodded. Lucas climbed into the driver's seat. Then let's go take back your life. The drive to New York was long and tense. Serena had spent most of it flipping through the evidence they had compiled. Every stolen dollar, every falsified document, every account Daniel Grant had used to cover his tracks. Lucas focused on the road, keeping an eye on every car that followed too closely. They weren't stupid. Daniel's men would be watching. By the time they crossed into the city limits, the sun had begun to dip behind the skyline. New York felt different this time. For Serena, it was a homecoming drenched in danger. For Lucas, it was a return to a past he had buried. They didn't go straight to Serena's penthouse. That would have been suicide. Instead, they parked in a lower Manhattan parking garage, then slipped through the back entrance of a small, nondescript brownstone. Serena led the way, checking for any signs of surveillance. Lucas followed, scanning every alley, every parked car, every shadow. When they finally reached the door, Serena pulled out a key and unlocked it. The apartment inside was small, modern, but completely off the grid. Lucas raised an eyebrow. You always keep a hidden apartment? Serena tossed her bag onto the couch. Comes with the territory. Lucas smirked. Remind me never to play poker with you. She glanced at him. Oh, I'd wipe the floor with you. Lucas chuckled, but the humor faded as reality settled in. This was it. The next move had to count. Serena sat at the counter opening up her laptop. We need a way to expose this publicly. If we don't control the narrative, Daniel will. Lucas nodded, leaning against the wall. We'll get to that. But first, he took a breath. Serena? She looked up at him. Something in his tone made her pause. Lucas exhaled. There's something you need to know before we do this. Serena set her laptop down. What is it? Lucas hesitated. This was the moment. Then finally he said it. I wasn't always a mechanic. Serena frowned slightly. What do you mean? Lucas met her gaze head on. I used to work for the government. The room went still. Serena's expression flickered between confusion and realization. What? Lucas inhaled deeply. I was a forensic accountant. A damn good one. Serena's lips parted slightly. Wait, you mean? Lucas gave a dry chuckle. Yeah, the guy who fixes engines used to fix billion-dollar fraud cases. Serena stared at him, processing. Lucas rubbed the back of his neck. I worked for the government until I got too close to a case I wasn't supposed to see. It nearly got me killed. Serena's breath hitched. So you disappeared, Lucas confirmed. Left everything behind. New name, new life. I walked away from it all. Serena shook her head in disbelief. And now you're back in it. Because of me. Lucas held her gaze. Because of you. A charged silence settled between them. Then Serena whispered, I should have known. Lucas smirked. I did try to tell you I fixed things. Serena huffed a laugh, but her expression was softer now. Lucas had just given her the biggest piece of himself, and somehow he trusted her with it. The air between them shifted. There were no more secrets. Lucas moved beside her, looking at the laptop screen. Daniel still thinks you're just a CEO with no resources. He has no idea you've got someone who knows exactly how to take him down. Serena nodded, determination hardening in her gaze. Then let's show him what happens when you push the wrong people. Lucas grinned. Now, they were on even ground. This wasn't just about clearing her name anymore. It was about winning, and Lucas never lost. The trap was set. Lucas and Serena sat in the dimly lit apartment, the glow from the laptop screen casting shadows across their faces. Tonight, everything would end. They had spent the last few hours carefully planting the evidence online, setting up anonymous leaks to various financial watchdogs and investigative journalists. By morning, the world would know exactly what Daniel Grant had done. But that wasn't enough. They needed to force his hand. Serena leaned forward, her fingers tightening around her coffee mug. He's going to fight back. Lucas nodded, his voice even. Good. That means we're getting to him. Serena's jaw clenched. He won't go down easily. Lucas smirked. Neither do I. Lucas had sent Daniel a message. It was short, director, and devastating. Daniel, you lost. See you at the board meeting. Serena, it wasn't just a challenge. It was a declaration of war. Serena would walk into Caldwell Financial headquarters tomorrow, taking her rightful place at the head of the company one last time. Daniel would have no choice but to show his hand, and when he did, they would be ready. The next morning, Serena walked through the glass doors of Caldwell Financial as if she had never left. Her heels clicked against the marble floors, her movements controlled, deliberate. She wasn't just reclaiming her company, she was taking back her life. Lucas walked beside her, dressed in a black suit that fit him a little too well for someone who claimed to be a mechanic. Serena shot him a sideways glance. You clean up well. Lucas smirked, trying not to be too impressed. They reached the top floor. The boardroom doors loomed ahead, heavy with the weight of what was to come. Serena inhaled slowly, then pushed them open. Daniel Grant was already inside, waiting for them. He was seated at the head of the table, the position that had once belonged to Serena. The rest of the board members sat stiffly around him, tension thick in the air. Daniel smirked as she walked in. Serena, I was starting to think you had taken my advice and disappeared. Serena didn't even blink. I don't take advice from traitors. A murmur rippled through the room. She wasn't here to play games. Daniel's smirk didn't fade. You shouldn't have come back. Lucas pulled out a chair for Serena, then leaned casually against the wall, watching, waiting. Serena sat down, crossed her legs, and then with a voice calm as ice, she said, You stole from my company. Silence. Daniel chuckled. That's a strong accusation. Serena slid a folder across the table. Inside was everything. The offshore accounts, the money trails, the fraudulent transactions. The evidence was undeniable. Daniel's smirk flickered. Serena tilted her head. Still want to deny it? The board members shifted uncomfortably. They were beginning to see the cracks in Daniel's facade. But Daniel wasn't done yet. He leaned forward, his voice dangerously soft. You think this changes anything? Serena met his gaze. I think it changes everything. Daniel smiled. Then he reached into his pocket, pulled out a small remote, and pressed a button. A security alarm blared through the building. Lucas moved first. He lunged toward Serena just as the doors burst open and armed guards flooded the room. Serena barely had time to react before Lucas grabbed her wrist and pulled her down. A bullet whizzed past where she had just been sitting. Chaos erupted. The board members scattered, shouting in panic. Daniel stood calmly, watching the scene unfold with a satisfied smirk. He had planned this. Lucas grabbed a chair and hurled it at one of the guards, buying them a second. Then he turned to Serena. We need to move, now. She nodded once. No fear, no hesitation, just focus. They ran. Lucas led Serena through the building, dodging security, weaving through back hallways. They burst into the stairwell, taking the steps two at a time. Serena panted. Where are we going? Lucas checked his watch. Right on time. The server room, he said. We're going to end this, right now. Serena didn't argue. They reached the lower levels, slipping through a restricted access door. Inside, rows of glowing servers stretched in every direction. Lucas moved fast, plugging a flash drive into the main terminal. "What are you doing?" Serena asked. Lucas's fingers flew over the keyboard. "Uploading everything. The evidence. The files. Everything Daniels tried to hide." Serena's eyes widened. "You're sending it public?" Lucas nodded. "In about 60 seconds, every news outlet, federal agency, and financial regulator in the country will have a copy." Serena exhaled sharply. "That's reckless." Lucas smirked. "That's justice." Upstairs, Daniel Grant was watching his empire collapse in real time. Phones were ringing, his assistants were panicking, and then his own security turned on him. Federal agents stormed the building. They had seen the files. They had the evidence. Daniel was done. By the time the dust settled, Lucas and Serena stood on the rooftop, looking down at the flashing police lights below. Serena was free. Lucas was still standing. And Daniel Grant, he was never getting out of this. Serena turned to Lucas, her expression unreadable. "So, what now?" Lucas smirked. "I was thinking pancakes." Serena laughed, a real laugh. Then she leaned in, resting her head against his shoulder. For the first time in a long time, everything felt right. The sun was beginning to rise over the New York skyline, casting streaks of gold and crimson across the towering glass buildings. The city never slept, but for once, Serena Caldwell felt like she could. She stood at the edge of the rooftop, her arms resting lightly on the ledge as she gazed down at the chaos below. Daniel Grant was finished. Just hours ago, federal agents had stormed Caldwell Financial Headquarters, arresting the man who had spent years carefully constructing his empire of deceit. The leaked files had done more than expose him. They had destroyed him. Lucas walked up beside her, his hands in his pockets, eyes scanning the scene below. "You did it." Serena let out a slow breath. "We did it." Lucas smirked. "You saying you couldn't have done it without me?" She turned to him, tilting her head. "I'm saying that for a mechanic, you're surprisingly good at corporate takedowns." Lucas chuckled. "Don't let the grease-stained hands fool you. I know how to dismantle more than just engines." Serena shook her head, a genuine smile touching her lips. For the first time in weeks, she felt light. But the battle wasn't over yet. Serena walked back inside, passing through the now empty boardroom. The chair at the head of the table, the seat that had once been hers, stood vacant. The board members had fled as soon as the scandal broke. Everything she had built was still standing, but the structure beneath it was cracked, fragile. Lucas followed her inside, studying her carefully. "You don't have to do this, you know." Serena turned to him. "Do what?" "Take back the company." Lucas leaned against the table, his expression unreadable. "You could walk away, start fresh. Let someone else deal with the mess Daniel left behind." Serena exhaled, running a hand through her hair. He wasn't wrong. She had spent her entire life fighting for this company. She had given it everything, her time, her energy, her heart. And yet, now that she stood here, staring at the empty chair, she realized it didn't feel the same anymore. Lucas saw it in her face. "You don't want this anymore." Serena swallowed hard. "I don't know who I am without it." Lucas took a step closer. "You're Serena Caldwell, and you can be whoever the hell you want to be." The words hit deeper than she expected. For years, she had been the CEO, the boss, the untouchable woman in power. But maybe that wasn't all she was meant to be. Slowly, she turned to face Lucas. "What if I walk away?" Lucas shrugged. "Then you walk, and I'll be right there with you." Serena's heart stumbled. She searched his face for any sign of hesitation, but there was none. Lucas wasn't just saying it. He meant it. Later that day, Serena stood in her office, staring out the window as the city pulsed below. She had made her decision. She reached for the phone and dialed. A familiar voice answered. "Serena?" "I'm stepping down," she said simply. A pause, then, "Are you sure?" Serena nodded, even though no one could see her. "It's time." She wasn't walking away in defeat. She was walking away on her own terms. By the time she hung up, it was done. She turned, expecting to feel regret. Instead, she felt free. Lucas leaned against the doorway, watching her. "That's it?" Serena smiled. "That's it." Lucas smirked. "So, what now?" Serena stepped closer, tilting her head. "Well, I hear there's a small-town mechanic who could use some business advice." Lucas chuckled. "Oh, yeah? You gonna teach me how to run my shop?" Serena shrugged. "Only if you teach me how to fix an engine." Lucas's eyes darkened with amusement. "Careful what you wish for." Serena smirked. "I'm always careful." Lucas leaned in, brushing a loose strand of hair behind her ear. "Not with me." Serena didn't argue, because he was right. And for the first time in a long time, she didn't want to be. 1 week later, Serena Caldwell disappeared from the headlines. The former CEO, who had taken down a corporate empire, had vanished from the public eye, her name whispered in business circles, but no longer making front-page news. And Lucas? He was right where he had always been, back in his garage fixing things. But now he wasn't alone. Serena leaned against the doorway, arms crossed, watching as Lucas worked under the hood of a car. "You gonna stare all day, or you gonna help?" Lucas called without looking up. Serena smirked. "I thought you liked the attention." Lucas wiped his hands on a rag and turned to face her. "I do, but only from you." Serena's heart did that stupid thing where it skipped. She stepped forward, taking the wrench from his hand. "All right, teach me." Lucas raised an eyebrow. "You're serious?" Serena grinned. "What? You think I can take down a billionaire but can't fix an oil leak?" Lucas chuckled. "All right, Caldwell. Let's see what you've got." And just like that, the next chapter of their lives began. Not in a boardroom, not in a high-rise office, but in a small-town garage where things were finally simple. And for the first time in forever, that was exactly what they wanted. A new beginning. 1 year later, the small town of Millfield hadn't changed much. It still had the same quiet streets, the same familiar faces, and the same little garage at the edge of town, the one that had once belonged to just Lucas. Now it belonged to both of them. Serena stood outside, hands on her hips, watching Lucas work under the hood of a car. The midday sun shone down on them, the air carrying the faint scent of oil and freshly cut grass. It was strange how life had changed. 1 year ago, she had been a CEO on the run. Now, she was home. Lucas wiped his hands on a rag and glanced up at her. "You're staring again." Serena smirked. "I like watching you work." Lucas arched a brow. "Because you're impressed, or because you still don't know what half these tools do?" Serena grinned. "A little bit of both." Lucas chuckled, tossing the rag onto the workbench. "Come here." Serena stepped forward, and Lucas pulled her into his arms. Grease-stained hands be damned. She didn't mind, she never did. A year ago, she had been untouchable, distant, alone. Now, she had something real. Lucas pressed a soft kiss against her forehead. "You still happy you gave up the corporate world for this?" Serena tilted her head, pretending to think. I don't know. The board meetings, the stress, the never-ending phone calls, I kind of miss it." Lucas smirked. "Oh, yeah." Serena wrapped her arms around his neck, her voice soft. "Not even a little." Lucas grinned. "Good." Because neither did he. It hadn't been easy. Stepping away from Caldwell Financial had been a leap into the unknown. But instead of falling, Serena had landed exactly where she was meant to be. She had started something new, a financial aid program that helped small businesses and struggling mechanics get the resources they needed. Lucas had expanded the garage, turning it into something more than just a repair shop. It was a community, a place where people came not just to fix their cars, but to rebuild their lives. And through it all, they had built this life together. Lucas pulled back slightly, his thumb brushing across Serena's cheek. There was something in his eyes, something unspoken. Serena noticed. "What?" Lucas exhaled, shaking his head. "Nothing." Serena narrowed her eyes. "Lucas." He smirked. "I was just thinking." "I never actually said it." Serena blinked. "Said what?" Lucas's gaze softened. And then, with quiet certainty, he said it. I love you. Serena's breath hitched. Not because she hadn't known. She had. But hearing it, feeling it, it made her heart ache in the best way possible. She smiled, fingers threading through his hair. Took you long enough, Lucas chuckled. You already knew? Serena nodded. Of course I did. Lucas tilted his head. And? Serena leaned in, pressing her lips against his, pouring everything she felt into the kiss. When she pulled away, her voice was barely a whisper. I love you too. Lucas exhaled, resting his forehead against hers. Good, because you're kind of stuck with me now. Serena grinned. I wouldn't have it any other way. The day faded into evening, the sky painted in hues of orange and violet. Lucas locked up the garage, glancing towards Serena, who was sitting on the hood of his truck, watching the sunset. He walked over, sliding onto the hood beside her. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Then Serena murmured, You ever think about how crazy this all was? Lucas smirked. You mean how a billionaire CEO ended up fixing cars in a small town with a mechanic who used to be a forensic accountant? Serena chuckled. Yeah, that. Lucas shrugged. Life's funny that way. Serena tilted her head. Would you do it all over again? Lucas didn't even hesitate. Every damn second. Serena smiled, because so would she. And as they sat there, the warm breeze carrying the scent of summer, the weight of the past finally fading into the background, she realized something. She didn't just find a new life. She found home, with him. That's a wrap. But before you go, wow, what a journey. From a fateful night in the rain to a billion-dollar scandal, love, betrayal, and redemption. This story had it all. But now I have a question for you. Where in the world are you watching from? Drop your country or city in the comments below. I love seeing how stories like this bring people together from every corner of the world. And if you enjoyed this adventure, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss another story like this. There's always more romance, suspense, and unforgettable characters coming your way. Thank you so much for watching, for supporting the channel, and for being part of this journey. Your comments, likes, and shares mean the world to me. Until next time, stay safe, stay inspired, and keep chasing great stories. See you in the next one.